All right, so we are in the final part of a series called BC. BC stands for Before Christ. We're looking at stories and people and characters from the Old Testament of what we call the Bible, which is a little tricky because for the Jewish people, the people whose these scriptures were their Bible, they don't call it the Old Testament. That's just their holy text, their scriptures. But we're looking at these stories, these people and these examples about what it's like to live in this world as God's people because a couple things. One, 55 to 60% of the world appreciate or even consider this text to be like their holy scriptures. And it's also larger, the Old Testament is also larger than the New Testament. And the New Testament deals with the life and the ministry of Jesus and the church that came after him. But also, we want to take a look at these stories because the Old Testament were the stories and the scripture that Jesus and his people talked about. They grew up reading these stories, knowing these stories. It told them about their identity and who they were because of God's activity in the world. So if Jesus was about the Old Testament, we figured it might be a good idea as followers of Jesus to check these out. And if you're not a follower of Jesus, we're glad you're here. I still think there's something you can take away from this message, even if you're not a follower of Jesus, and they're really, really valuable. So we've been doing that for 5 weeks. For 5 weeks, we've been looking at some Old Testament stories. Beginning with week 1, we looked at the first people mentioned in the Bible, Adam and Eve. In week 2, we covered an entire book of the Old Testament called Esther. In week 3, we spent some time looking at the guy that would begin the nation of Israel. His name was Abram, who became Abraham, and he had a family that became the nation and the people of Israel, the Jewish people. And then last week, we spent some time looking at Moses and his interaction with God and all of the implications that came about because of that interaction. Now, we're going to continue looking at an Old Testament story this week. But before we go there, I need to set it up a little bit, and I need to talk about good sleep. Amen. Right, yes, good sleep. I appreciate good sleep. I'm not good at getting regular good sleep. I'm talking 7 to 9 hours every night, going to bed at the same time, waking up early, the same time every day. I'm not good at that, but I know it's important. And you probably know this too. There's a ton of research that keeps coming out about the importance of sleep and what it does for us. Apparently when we're sleeping, there's some fluid that goes into our brain to clear it out of all of the garbage that you cannot do. That doesn't happen if you don't sleep enough. Additionally, it improves our mood, reduces stress, it reduces our anxiety and helps lower the possibility of depression. It improves cognitive ability, helps us with memory. It helps with cardiac health and immune response, and regulates hormones and helps us maintain a healthy weight. All super awesome ideas that will make me and you and all of us better people in society and at work, and wherever we might be, at home with our families and whatnot. I want this for me. I want to be a better parent. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better person. I want to be a better member of society. But I can't do it. I struggle to get good sleep every night because there's always another movie to watch. There's always another TV program to start binging. There's always another round of video games to play if you're so inclined. There's always a conversation to be had or people to hang out with. There's a million reasons why. And those things aren't necessarily bad, all of them. But here's the thing I struggle with, and maybe you struggle with this idea too, that the things I get distracted by are never as important as the things I get distracted from. That often there's some goal in front of me. There's something I want to give my attention to. And I feel called to do this thing, and yet I spend my time elsewhere. I give my attention to other things, often things that are not nearly as important. And it's I know that this is good. I know the health implications for my life if I get regular good sleep, but it's yeah, but how much Netflix is too much? Because I don't know if there is too much. How much junk food should I eat at night, which is going to mess me up, and I can't sleep, and I can't whatever. It's why do I keep getting distracted? Why can't I keep my focus where it belongs? And maybe this is the case for you. Maybe not with sleep, maybe something else. And I would refer to it as something like the main thing. Maybe you have a main thing, maybe you have several main things that you right now in this part of your life, in this season of life, You are like called, whether by God or some internal force or by some outside forces and people, you feel like you need to do this thing, but it's hard to stay on track. Perhaps for you, it's a habit that you need to start. Maybe there's something like, I want to do something daily. I'd like to start a habit daily. Maybe it's a gratitude thing. Maybe it's like a morning routine. But you know, like if I do this thing over time, it'll produce results. And it's like, why can't I stick to it? Or maybe it's a habit that you want to break. Maybe there's something in your life right now where you're like, yep, I know that if I don't deal with this thing over time, it's going to have super negative consequences for me. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe what comes to mind right now is a person that things are kind of rough with. It's rocky. And you need to address it. You need to reconcile. You need to repair this relationship. Maybe it's with a friend or a sibling or spouse or a kid. Maybe there's a relationship you need to retire. Maybe there's someone in your life who you like spending time with, but you're aware that down the line, it could really, really take you to places you don't want to go. Perhaps it's more than that. Maybe it's a project. It's a project you need to finish. It's something you need to get to. Maybe it's a degree. Maybe it's a class you have to take. Maybe it's something work-related. Maybe it's something around the house that you know if you do this, it's going to produce great results for you and the people you care about. Maybe it's a goal that you need to see all the way through. Or it's a commitment you've made, a promise that you need to keep. It could be physical. It could be like a health thing, a sleep thing, a diet thing, a working out thing. Maybe it's a financial thing. Maybe there's like something in your life right now, you're like, I have to get my money in order. Because later on, if I'm not careful, there's going to be debt to be had. Or maybe it's a positive thing. Maybe you've found a way to earn what you would like to earn. And now it's like, okay, how can I be a blessing to the people I care about? Maybe there's some attention you need to give about how you spend your money so that you can make a difference in people's lives, not just for your own consumption. Perhaps it's a mental thing. You have some thoughts that you need to address. Perhaps thoughts that you're like, I don't know where they're coming from, but I don't like them. Or there's things you're like, I have ideas, and I need to put them in action. I need to do something about these thoughts. Maybe it's emotional. There's some stuff. There's some trauma. There's some baggage. And you're like, I got to talk to somebody. Maybe a close friend, a professional. I don't know. I can't just sit with this. I know I have to do something with it. And lastly, maybe it's a spiritual thing. Perhaps even coming here today is part of that. You're like, I'll check out this church. Not sold on it yet, but I'll check it out. And it's like, okay, that's a first step. And maybe you need to keep going with those steps and see where it takes you. Maybe that's the thing you need to focus on. I don't know what your thing is, what your main thing is. Maybe you have many of them. But what I do know is that it deserves your undivided attention in this season of life. There's something that's going on in your life that you like will require you to stay focused. But there's so many distractions. And it's so easy to turn our attention away from what we're called to do. And if that's you, if you're like me, or if you're like that, the story that we're looking at today, the character we're looking at today, his example is awesome. He will give us a tool to use, something to reach for in our tool belts, to utilize when these distractions show up. When lesser things, less important things show up that want to take us away from what we know to be the main thing right now, but to be the most important thing in this season of life, this guy's story will help us immensely. His name is Nehemiah. Nehemiah we find in the latter portion of the Old Testament. Like it's very soon before we get to the New Testament if you're reading his story. Now, at this point in the Old Testament, it's about 450 years before Jesus shows up, what we would consider the first century of AD, like 2,000 years ago. So this is like 2,500 years ago. The people of Israel, which Nehemiah was one of them, they were just coming out of the worst time in their entire history. At some point, the people of Israel became a great nation through Abraham's family. And then they were enslaved in Egypt, and they were delivered out of that. And over time, and I'm summing up like thousands of years of history here, they became a kingdom where there was a king. King Saul, King David, King Solomon, who came after them. And then the whole thing splintered, it fractured, and there was a lot of fighting, and then they got conquered. And during the conquest of the Babylonians over the Israelites, they destroyed Jerusalem. The Babylonians didn't want anything to do with other cultures. They're like, what we will do is wipe them out. And so Jerusalem was sacked and destroyed. And their crown jewel, the temple, was also destroyed. It was a horrible time for the Jewish people. Then, as fate would have it, the Persians conquered Babylon and destroyed Babylon, but then they had a different approach to ruling people they conquered. They were like, you know what, rather than like just force everybody to live like us, why don't we just make it easier on ourselves and let the Jewish people live their own cultures? And so they actually allowed the Jewish people to return from the Persian cities back to Jerusalem to actually rebuild the temple. Now, it wasn't as nice as it once was originally, but it was a huge step in the right direction. It was a big win for them. They were like, okay, our center of worship, the place where we can go to communicate with God, has been restored. The place where we can pray, the place where we do what we need to do as we understand God at this time, it's back together. They rebuilt the temple. And that's where we find Nehemiah. This is after the temple's rebuilt, but Jerusalem still is in ruins in a lot of ways, particularly in its defense. So, Nehemiah is living in the city of Susa, the capital city of the Persian Empire, and he hears from friends about the situation back in Jerusalem. And that's where we pick up the story. And this is the report he receives from his friends. He says, they say to him, those who survived the exile, that is, being pulled out of Jerusalem to live in Persia, and are back in the province, that is Judah, where Jerusalem the city is, are in great trouble and disgrace. They're still not having a good time, despite the fact that our temple is kind of rebuilt, like it's back to how it once was, or close to it. The reason why is the wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned down. Like that's a sad state for that time. Like if you were a city or a people and you like established yourselves in a location, at that time, if you did not have a wall, you could easily be invaded and overrun by anybody who wanted to overpower you. You needed a wall at that time to keep the people inside safe. It was also a great way to control commerce, because then you controlled the flow of traffic in and out of the city. And for cities back then, if you did not have a wall, you weren't even a city. You were just a settlement. So they needed a wall. They wanted a wall to be seen as like a legitimate people, to be recognized as people with value. They're like, this is important. And the wall is burned down. And here's Nehemiah's response to all of that. When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. Totally broke his heart. For some days I mourned and I fasted to go without food and prayed before the God of heaven. So already we're seeing a little bit of Nehemiah's character. He's just like brokenhearted at the state of his home city. And so he prays this prayer, and at the end of this prayer, after saying like, God, like I know we've made mistakes as a people and we're sorry, like can you give us a second chance if you will? And also he ends the prayer with, will you give me success before this man? Which is a weird way to end a prayer. Turns out, if right after that, he tells us, because the story of Nehemiah is written in the first person, he was the cupbearer to the Persian king. Like he was the guy who brought the king his wine, which is a pretty cush job for the most part, I think, unless you get under the king's skin, and then you're dead. It's over. So he's like, give me success before this man. Maybe I can have an audience with him. Maybe I can, through this proximity, do something about the situation. And that's his prayer. Now, this king, his name is Artaxerxes. He was the son of Xerxes, who was mentioned in the Esther story, who's also the same historical character as Xerxes that you've seen probably in the movie 300. All right, now that Xerxes was like 9 foot tall. I don't know if he was that tall, maybe. But that's the same, like we're talking about the same like people group in the same time. So he goes before the king. He cannot hide the fact that he's upset. I guess he was pretty good at his job regularly, because like he would go in and everything would look happy, and he would never bring home stuff to work. But he can't help it. He's feeling upset, and the king notices what's going on with his face. He's like, Nehemiah, what's wrong with your face? Like, you look upset, but I can tell that you're not sick. And he's like, oh, great king, it's hard for me to keep my face under control because my home, my ancestral home, it's in ruins. It's rubble. I can't help but feel sad about it. So the king asks him, well, what do you want to do about it? And this is his response. If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him, that's the king, send me to the city in Judah, that is the city he's referring to as Jerusalem, where my ancestors are buried, so that I can rebuild it. So he makes a request. He's like, could I get some time off? I need to take a leave of absence, also paid, please. Furthermore, could I also get your authority behind me? Could you write some letters so when I go there and travel, like I'm under the king's protection? Could I also get a royal escort and some royal lumber from the royal forest to rebuild the walls and the gates? And the king's like, yep. And you just got promoted to governor of Judah. Congratulations. So now he's been elevated to actually do something about this situation. So I want to kind of sum up what's gone on so far in Nehemiah's life, right? We talked about all of these things, right? The main thing. For him, it became very clear, and maybe this will help you narrow it down to the thing that maybe you're supposed to be focused on in this season of life. You see, he was very passionate about his home city. It broke his heart. Maybe there's something for you that's like, this doesn't sit right with me. Something's got to change. Pay attention to that. And then he was given resources. He was provided things to actually go and repair the situation, which put him in a position to make a difference there. And if these things start to line up for you, pay attention to that. Perhaps that's what you are called to be focused on in this season of your life. Maybe it's a short season. Maybe it's a season that'll last for years. But pay attention to this. For him, it was obvious. He's like, I got to do something. I cannot let my home city be in ruins. I don't like that my people are not being taken care of. I'm going to step in and do something about it. And he's given the resources and the position to make that happen. So he goes and he travels. He goes to Jerusalem to scout out the area. And he's like, oh, this was just as bad as my friends had told me. Like, this is horrible. So he gathers the people of the city together. And he's like, look, we're going to do something about this. We're going to put our mind and our effort, our blood, sweat, and tears into this, and we're going to make a difference. This is what he says to them. He says, you see the trouble we're in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, right? He's stirring up the passion within them. And its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace. He's like, you see it, right? And they're like, like, well, we can do something. Come, join me. Let's go on this journey together. Let's take care of this main thing together. And they replied, let us start rebuilding. And they go for it. And he starts assigning people like, okay, you and your family, you're assigned to this south part of the wall. And he keeps assigning different groups of people to different parts of the wall around this city. And they start working. But of course, every great story needs a villain. And there's three. And these guys, they're just looking out for themselves and their people, and they don't like this idea of a wall. Because they know that with a wall, they can't just plunder the Israelites whenever they want, and they suspect perhaps the Jewish people, if they get a wall, at some point they're going to revolt and try to, overthrow Persia, and we just cannot let that happen. We like the situation how it is right now, so they start to resist, and they start to get in the way. And they start to bother the people rebuilding the wall. They start to taunt them and threaten them. And Nehemiah, he's so clever. You got to read the story for yourselves. Every time they come up with a scheme, he counteracts it perfectly, and the work never stops. Like at one point, they're threatened by the guys which we're going to mention in a second with their armies, the soldiers, and he starts to put men around the area they're working so that the conflict never gets to the people rebuilding the wall. Every time something shows up, he gets in the way so that nothing interrupts the work. And then, as they're progressing, half the wall, 75%, they get down to the last little details, important details. And this is where the story culminates in chapter 6 of Nehemiah. It says this. When Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem, those are the three bad guys, if you will, in the story. When these guys and the rest of our enemies heard that I had rebuilt the wall, not a gap was left in it, though, he interrupts himself, though up to that time I had not set the doors and the gates. Turns out, walls are pretty functionless without a gate, right? You need to be able to open and close it when you need to. When this was already there, when 99% of the wall minus the gates were done, they escalated. They ramped up their attempts to stop the building of the wall. It says, Sanballat and Geshem sent me this message. Come, let us meet together in one of the villages on the plain of Ono. Come on, let's have a conference. Let's have a little powwow. And they knew that it would take a day and a half's journey to get there for Nehemiah. You have to leave Jerusalem to go. And then there would be a round trip, which would be at least 3 days, maybe 4 total. that would take him away from overseeing the completion of this project, seeing it all the way to the end. But something going on here. He realizes they were scheming to harm me. Do you know how he knew that? It's in the name. Oh no. Don't read the Bible this way. That's not how it works. It wasn't also about Yoko, John Lennon's wife. No, Ono was an area that was kind of lawless. Like it existed not necessarily outside Persia, but it wasn't like well occupied. So it would be easy for them to harm Nehemiah. Be easy to make it look like an accident, or some maybe wild animal or bandits took him out. And he realizes, okay, first off, even if this was a positive idea, like getting together, oh, let's all be buddies, it's gonna be 3 or 4 days. He's like, I can't do that. And I'm pretty sure they're gonna kill me, which that's not gonna be good for me or the wall. So he responds. So I sent messengers to them with this reply. I like that he didn't even go himself. He's like, somebody else is gonna go share this message. Now, before we get to what he says, I think that this statement, it's so simple, but it speaks so well when we are faced with the distractions. When things that could have our attention, that don't deserve it, show up. When there are calls from other people to take us away from the thing we ought to be focused on show up, this is how we respond. I think this is the thing that can really make a difference. And it's very simple, but it's right to the point, and it says it so succinctly. This is what it says. This is his response. I'm doing a great work, and I cannot come down. He's on the wall, seeing the completion of these gates, and he gets his invitation to leave. And he's like, there's no chance I'm stopping this work. It's too darn important. I have to stay here. I'm doing a great thing, an important, vital, incredibly life-altering thing here. I will not come down. And I think that ought to be our response when the distractions show up. Nope, sorry, I cannot be doing that right now. I'm doing a great work, and I cannot come down. And he continues. And he says, why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? Which sounds really like condescending, like he's being like belittling, like you guys are not that important. But it's not a matter of arrogance, it's a matter of perspective and clarity. He's like, this one thing is so much more important than anything else I could have going on in my life. I have to say no. I don't care what it is. It could be positive. He could have, like those guys, Geshem, Tobiah, and Sanballat, perhaps they could have been actually genuine in their wanting to get together. They're like, oh, Nehemiah, we're so sorry. We're so sorry for the way we treated you. We want to like make things nice, and we want to give you something. We'd love to get together. Would you be willing to meet? And it could be 100% genuine, and he would still say no, because it would take him from the work. It would distract him from the more important thing, the ultimate thing for him. So he would say no. And what's amazing is that they didn't just try one time. 4 times they sent me the same message. Hey, let's get together. Let's hang out. Let's meet. And each time he gave the same answer. He said, I'm doing a great work, and I cannot come down. That's his response every single time. No. What I've got going on, and it sounds mean, it's just too important for me to stop. I'd love for us to try something weird. Can we try saying this together? Because I think this is good practice. I'm doing a great work, and I cannot come down. That's the words you ought to use when you are faced with some temptations, when you're faced with some things that are going to just pull your eyes away from what you need to stay focused on. Even if they're good. Because sometimes, and this is tricky, and some people won't understand what you're about. Like when you got your eyes fixated on the one thing you need to be doing, and people come up to you and be like, hey, let's go do, and it could be an awesome opportunity to do something fun and beautiful, and you'd be like, I not right now. I got something else going. People are going to think you're weird. And it's okay. You're going to face some criticism. Oftentimes, probably from people that are very close to you who don't get it. And it's going to be tempting to be like, you know what, I just want to make them happy. But when you do that, when you say yes to that, you can't say yes to the bigger, more important thing for this season, for the time. So when those things come your way, you have to recognize that some invitations are actually interruptions. And it can feel so unkind or so different from your nature to be like, no thanks. Some opportunities are actually obstacles. But this is so important. And I'm trying to be good at this in my own life. I've talked about this. If you were here 2 weeks ago, I talked about how I've been a musician for a very long time. And I love music. I love playing guitar. I've made some decent money playing at restaurants and being part of bands and whatever. And I miss it. Like, I get to do it here, but I also like going out to play. But I have drastically reduced the amount of time I spend playing out. Not because it's bad, not because earning money is bad. I like that part a lot. But because right now, that's not the thing I need to be doing. I don't feel called to perform out. I feel called to be available to my kids. And it's for a season. Maybe when they get older, it'll be easy. And I'll be like, you know what? I have the freedom and I can go back to doing that and it's awesome. But for now, I have to see invitations, opportunities as things that might get in the way of what I ultimately want. I don't want, down the line to be like, wow, I'm so glad Dad earned all that money so we could have this or go on that vacation, but we never got to see him all the time. Like, that for me right now is one of the main things I want to be available to. So I don't know what it is for you, but there's probably something where you're like, yep, I get it. I've been saying yes to lesser things, and I put this other thing, this main thing off for a very, very, very long time. And it's now, you got to start saying some hard no's or some small yeses to what you want to chase. And this seems like counterintuitive, but it's okay. In fact, it's probably wise to neglect some good things for the sake of the better things, for the most important things in your lives. And it may not be forever. It might be for a season. It might be just for right now. And then in a few months down the line, it'll be different. And you can turn and change direction. And a new main thing will take over. And it's totally fine to do that. Perhaps some of you right now are thinking like, yep, I got to finish that degree. I started it. And I'm like just more concerned about income or social life. And it's like the books just sit there on the shelf. And it's like, for some reason there's some internal pull, some call to get this done. Don't put it off. Say no to the other things so you can say yes to this thing. Or maybe it's the other way around. For some of you, it's like you've been working so hard on your degree, it's great, and now your social life is pretty much vacant, and you're like, I don't even know who my friends are anymore. It might be time for you to say a soft no to the books and a series of yeses to your social life for the sake of your internal well-being. Maybe it's putting certain things with work on the back burner because it's like, the extra income right now isn't worth it. I need to focus on the emotional state inside. I got to work on me. Or maybe it's the other way. You've done all of the internal work, and now it's like time to branch out. Go make that extra income. Go do the thing that'll set you free financially for the rest of your lives. I don't know what it is. But it's probably something that that you're like, oh, I have to be diligent. I have to be disciplined. I got to say no to the lesser things so I can say yes to the most important thing. So, Nehemiah, he keeps saying no to these guys, and they finish the wall. In chapter 6, and his story goes on for another 7 chapters, which we're not going to get into, but you should read it for yourselves. It says here in 6, so the wall was completed on the 25th day of the 6th month, Elul, in 52 days. In 52 days, they took all of these people and rebuilt this wall, including the gates, and it says that when they finished the work, the neighboring peoples who saw and heard about the completed wall, they were shocked, and they lost their self-confidence. They lost the ability to feel like, oh, the Israelites, they're a joke. Like they could just walk in and plunder them and be like, we can do whatever we want. Instead, they're like, oh, something's up with these people. And he goes on to write, these people realize that God helped them complete the work. It didn't just have implications for those people, it had implications, positive implications, for the neighboring people. So when you think about you, maybe in 52 days, where would you be? What would life look like if you decided for 52 days, I'm going to commit myself to this thing? Maybe it needs to be longer than that. Maybe it needs to be a year's time. What would your relationships look like? Who would you be? Would you be the same person? On which side will you feel like there's regret? On doing the thing, getting it done, completing it, or having it sit there for another 12 months? I have a friend who, great guy. He is uniquely gifted and educated and trained to work with people who have developmental differences, both emotionally and intellectually. And he's incredible with them. But the work is challenging. It like drains him emotionally. Sometimes it harms him physically. And that's difficult on its own, but sometimes the people around him, the people he works with, the administration, whatnot, it's kind of chaotic and it's been really dragging him down. So he contacted me recently and was like, look, for the month of July, I cannot serve at the church. And I was like, that is so messed up. We can't be friends. No, I was like, yeah, what's going on? He's like, so he explained everything. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. He's like, I have to focus on my emotional and mental well-being. It's just too much right now. And I was like, of course. No. Like, you need to work on you, because one, when you work on you in this sense for a month, for one season, whatever, it could be longer, that's fine. It's that he's going to be better when he returns to work. He's going to be better when he gets home from work. He's going to be better at the church when he takes this time. It's the one thing he needs to focus on right now. And he's going to say to lots of invitations to hang out and to get pizza and to play video games and to watch movies late into the night, he's going to say, I cannot do those things. I can't, because I'm doing a great work and I cannot come down. And he's going to be a better version of himself for him, for his family, and for the people that he takes care of when he goes into work. So for you, what is it? In what area of your life have you been neglectful and you've been putting off, and it's the important thing, and you've been saying yes to lesser things? What thing do you feel like God is stirring up in you even now to be like, I want your attention on this. It's going to have an incredible effect down the line. Let's borrow these words from Nehemiah. Let's be tenacious like him. Let's, at every time one of these invitations and these opportunities and these distractions show up, let's say, I'm doing a great work and I cannot come down. And I'm sorry if it makes me look weird. But on the other side of this decision, and on the other side of staying on the wall, beautiful, healthy, awesome things are going to take place. Let's do this.
Hey, this is Lou. Thanks for listening. I hope that this was helpful for you in some way. So a lot of people don't know this, but Community Church is completely supported by the generous donations of people like you and me. And if you'd like to join that community of financial supporters, you can go to communitychurch.net/give, or you can give anytime on our church app. And so thanks for being part of this community, whether it's locally or from a distance. Thanks for investing in your faith. And thanks for being part of something that's bigger than yourself. Hope to see you soon.